Emergency pod. Yes, there's another one in your feed as four-star tight end Jelani Thurman just committed to the Ohio State University. We'll tell you about some things you'll love about Mr. Thurman and what this might mean for the Ohio State passing game going forward. We'll discuss all of this right here only on Locked on Buckeyes.
You are Locked on Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Sunday, July 17th in the year 2022, and I want to thank you for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. On today's special emergency episode, we will discuss the recent commitment to Ohio State that came via Jelani Thurman. He is a four-star tight end out of the state of Georgia. Standing at 6'5", 230 pounds, Jelani Thurman has a frame and has a skill set that you will love, and that might mean some things coming up down the road for the Ohio State passing game. He is the number 9 tight end via 247 Sports, their composite rankings in the class of 2023, and he is the 11th ranked recruit and player in this class from the state of Georgia. Out of Fairburn, Georgia, he does have a little bit of a pedigree that I believe that many people will say, can he tap into some things that his parents had that made them very special? His dad, Odell Thurman, former NFL linebacker that was drafted in the second round of the 2005 draft. He was an all-SEC honor winner while playing at the University of Georgia. He was also a semifinalist, his dad was, for the Buckeyes Award in 2004. His mom, remember I said parents, his mom, Miss Kara Braxton, former WNBA player that also played overseas. She also attended the University of Georgia. Now, the interesting thing about the University of Georgia is that they weren't in the final running for Mr. Thurman, Jelani Thurman, when it came to schools that he might commit to or might play football at. He chose Ohio State over Alabama, Auburn, Michigan State, and Jackson State. Deion Sanders still trying to build something big down south, and he's going to keep going after these top players that are in these recruiting classes. Ohio State got him. Deion didn't. What are some things about this young man that you will love that I do believe that make him a great fit for the Buckeyes, and maybe some things coming up down the road in the Ohio State passing game? He can line up in multiple positions, playing in the flex out tight end position, attached on the line of scrimmage, or in the H-back position. So honestly, wherever you want to line him up, he can fit that role. So we talk about versatility a lot with John Garcia Jr. when he comes on the podcast. Well, this versatility, you're already being able to line up at different positions. That is one thing that, yes, a coach loves, and he might fine-tune your footwork, fine-tune your release, fine-tune your get off the line and all those things. But he doesn't have to teach you something completely new. He can just refine and tool up and help you be better at what you already do and what you already know. He catches the ball away from his body, which you may say, Jay, that's self-explanatory. He's a tight end. He can catch the ball. He's elite. Not everybody that is categorized as maybe elite or special or things like that can catch the ball away from their body. They can just work around some of the things that they're not good at and still be successful in those ways. He has the physical tools to overwhelm defenders. He's also a multi-sport athlete. He plays basketball. Oh, yeah. He also played both ways as well. During the 2021 season, just last year, he was an all-region selection. He played defensive end as a junior for Langston Hughes. They went 13-2 and lost in Georgia's 6A title game. Last year's stats via Max Preps, Jelani Thurman had 31 catches for 479 yards, 7 touchdowns. He also was credited with 61 tackles and 5 quarterback hurries and 1 sack. Talk about a guy that can flourish on offense, can flourish on defense, has a pedigree, has parents that were professionals themselves, that have sorts of things in his tools that are great. And oh yeah, he is the second tight end in this class to commit to Ohio State. Ty Lockwood, who stands at 6'5", 225 pounds, the number 8 ranked tight end in this recruiting class. That's huge. That's big. If you see Ty Lockwood, you might think that's Bobby Carpenter's son. If you see them side by side, it completely makes sense. But I don't believe that is Bobby Carpenter's son. Ty Lockwood, Jelani Thurman, great gets for Ohio State. But is this a sign of things to come and maybe a little bit of a different flavor from the Ohio State passing game down the road? Possibly, and I'll tell you why right here only on Locked on Buckeyes. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's Major League Baseball season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. And BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. BetOnline.net is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet online, where the game starts. This offseason, a few months ago, Ryan Day promoted and gave the title of passing game coordinator to Brian Hartline. It was a quick thought that Brian Hartline was not only going to have a bigger part in the passing game, but also is going to be a coach that was going to tap into the expertise and experience of Kevin Wilson, the OC and tight ends coach, as well as Ryan Day, the head coach of the Buckeyes, to get their input into making Ohio State's passing attack the best it can be. While thinking about Jelani Thurman's commitment and Ty Lockwood, a second tight end, being in this class, I started to wonder, will we see a different passing attack and a little different approach from the Ohio State passing game going forward? I absolutely think we will. One thing we know that a great way to get receivers open is to not just have more receivers, elite receivers out there on the field at the same time, but to also have guys that tight end that lock up and get attention for themselves. Jeremy Ruckert was a player that could have been used in different ways to take advantage of the skill set that he had. The Buckeyes didn't do that. They put him in a specific role. Jeremy Ruckert got drafted to the New York Jets, and I do expect we're going to see more of Ruckert's skill set in the National Football League because they'll use more of that in that offense. But I think Brian Hartline realizes there's too much talent at Ohio State at running back in the passing game and at tight end in the passing game that you just can't rely on the receivers. Like what we saw from Ohio State receivers last year, I don't think that's going to be the trend going forward, and especially under Ryan Day, simply because these tight ends are too good, way too talented, and you just can't be going receiver. You just can't you can, but I don't think it's a wise way to utilize the talent on your team. And I do believe Brian Hartline knows that as well. So think about this. We recently talked about how Jelani Thurman can line up as a flex tight end, can line up attached at the end of the line of scrimmage, your traditional lineup spot for a tight end, and he can line up as an H-back. So you got 3 different ways this current commitment, the recent commitment today, can line up. When you think about that, you think about a passing attack, when you think about elite tight ends in the National Football League or in college, what do? They can line up in different areas. They can block. Now, some of them aren't the best blockers, but they can still block and be respectable in that way. But they're guys that the people calling the shots, they realize we need to get this guy involved way more than maybe we thought we were going to. Last year, we saw Jackson Smith-Njigba have over 1,600 receiving yards, have 95 receptions, and I personally don't think that's going to happen down the road. I think last year, of course, the Nebraska game, and then also in the Rose Bowl, when you have your 2 top receivers who aren't on the field, those were times, even the Nebraska game when Ohio State needed a spark, who was Stroud going to in those times? And Njigba. Who could Nebraska not stop? in Jigba. So I do think there may be times where you may see a receiver go off. I mean, literally just go off. But I think we're going to see a more balanced passing attack, utilizing more running backs in the passing game and utilizing more tight ends in the passing game, because it just opens up passing windows and it makes things a whole lot easier. People say Ohio State's offense is easy for the quarterback. It just makes things easier for them. You know a way to make it easier for Stroud? Utilize every weapon. Make everybody who is an eligible receiver on a particular play a threat. An obvious threat. Say, hey, yeah, I know he's a tight end, but I know I got these three receivers. I know I got a cat in the backfield who can catch them all as well. How about everybody simply be a threat? And by making them be a threat, buddy, it makes things tougher for the opposition to stop you. Everyone's talking about, I recently saw a clip from J.D. Pickell of On 3, and he was talking about how Ohio State's three safety look will confuse and possibly muddy up the picture for opposing offenses, which is true, absolutely is. But you want to know how to muddy up the picture for the opposing defense? Utilize your tight end who's talented and can catch the ball in different ways, different areas, can line up in different areas. Use your receivers, use your running back, use every weapon you have to have the best passing attack you can have. Guys, I'm glad Jelani Thurman is a Buckeye, and I literally can't wait to see how Brian Hartline alters Ohio State's passing game to make it the best it can be. Thank you for tuning in to this special emergency episode of Locked On Buckeyes. You can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can send all of your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. I'm out of here for the day. We'll be back again tomorrow with a regular Monday episode of Locked On Buckeyes.